Good evening, everyone. We're holding in middle of Perek Mem Gimel. And today, Mir Hashem, we are going to conclude, after quite a while, the sugya of Yiras Hashem, the topic of Yiras Hashem. So in the previous prakim, we spoke about different levels of Yiras Hashem. And in the beginning of this Perek, in Perek Mem Gimel, Alter Rebbe says, you should know that everything that we spoke up until this point, in terms of Yiras Hashem, is all Yira Tata. It's the lower level of Yira. Although we spoke many different levels in Yira Tata. And here, in our period, Alter Rebbe actually even introduced another level in Yira Tata, a higher level, what's called the Godless within Yira Tata. But all of these are a lower level of Yiras Hashem. And in order to stay away from Aveira, and in order to be able to serve Hashem, that's the level of Yira that you need. And Alter Rebbe began Perek Mamalaf, and he said that Reishis Avodah v'Ikra v'Sharsha, that the beginning of Avodah and the main part of Avodah and the foundation of all Avodah is fear. He's talking about Yira Tata, the Yira which is necessary before a person is able to properly study Torah and do mitzvahs. And this, the Mishnah says, Him ein Yira ein Chachma. Without Yira, the whole Chachma of Torah and the whole Chachma of mitzvahs doesn't begin. However, says the Alter Rebbe, there's another level of Yira, which is called Yira Ilah, and that's what we're talking. But that's what the Alter Rebbe is going to introduce over here. We already spoke about it last week, and that is a Yira that comes not before Torah mitzvahs, but the contrary, as we shall see, as we'll learn today. You need Torah mitzvahs in order to be able to arrive at that level of Yira, and that's why the Mishnah continues and says, "Im ein Chachma ein Yira." If there is no Chachma, there is no Yira. Even though, as we mentioned last week, that seems to be a contradiction. What do you mean? If there is no Yira, there is no Chachma. If there is no Chachma, there is no Yira. So where do you start? What that means is you start with Yira Tata, and from there you move on to Chachma, and from Chachma you move on to Yira Ilah. What is this higher level of Yira? What is Yira Ilah? So Alter Rebbe explains that all the levels of Yira Tata are. We arrive at the Yira, we arrive at the awe of Hashem, the reverence for Hashem, the fear of Hashem, through contemplating Hashem's relationship with the world. In Yira Ilah, on the other hand, we arrive at Yira Ilah not by contemplating Hashem's relationship with the world, not by looking at the world and saying, wow, take a look at the world, and take a look at creation. Not only our world, but all the higher worlds, the spiritual worlds. And if Hashem created all of this, wow, Hashem must be so amazing, and that causes you to have this tremendous reverence for Hashem. That's the lower level of Yira. The higher level of Yira is that you think to yourself how all the worlds are nothing to Hashem. As we mentioned, I think last week, the entire creation, the entire creation of the universe, the physical universe, and all the spiritual worlds, all of those don't even make it onto Hashem's resume. That's how insignificant it all is to Hashem, as we spoke at length last week. And that brings a person to a higher level of Yira, what we call Yira Ilah, also called Yiras Harememus or Yari Boishes. And the primary difference between Yira Tata and Yira Ilah is that Yira Tata, your fear of Hashem, is triggered by Hashem's actions. So the more actions that Hashem, the more creations, and the more of Hashem's accomplishments, the greater the Yira. But it's not about Hashem himself. As we spoke last week, it's like the Yira that you have for a Melech, that the more territories that the Melech, the king, controls, the greater the Yira. And Yira Ilah is like the Yira you have for a great Chacham, or for a great Tzaddik, that your fear of him and your awe of the Tzaddik is not because of the amount of people or territories or power or possessions or anything that the Chacham or the Tzaddik controls, but rather the fear is of, the reverence is for the Chacham himself, the greatness of the Chacham himself. So Yira Ilah also is a Yira for Hashem himself, not from what Hashem does, because everything that Hashem does is really insignificant relative to him. And this Yira, the Yira Ilah, is one which leaves a person feeling utterly insignificant and bottle before Hashem. That's what we learned last week. And this is, if you remember, we said, Ein Yira in Chachma, Ein Chachma in Yira. So Alter Rebbe says, that Chachma is the idea of bittul. Idea of bittul. That's why Chachma is koyach ma. The koyach, the faculty of ma. Ma means, like Moshe Rabbeinu said, v'nachnu ma. What are we? And as we said, Ezo Chacham harayes hanoilad. Harayes hanoilad. Now where does this Chachma, is the ability to be able to see how the world at every moment is being brought into creation from Hashem, and therefore all the worlds are really nothing. And therefore, you think about the greatness of Hashem, not about the greatness of the worlds, but about the greatness of Hashem. So we start off with Yira, the lower level of Yira. From this we arrive to Torah Mitzvahs and Chachma, which is Bittul. And once you have that Bittul for Hashem, meaning this recognition how the worlds are really Ayin, Chachma me Ayin Tamatzeh. Chachma comes from contemplating the nothingness of the world. And once we have that, then we're ready for the higher level of Yira, which is Yira Saremus. We're going to start inside. And we're holding on page Samach Beis, which is opposite of page 122, the second line from the top. Says the Alter Rebbe, however, this Yira, this higher level of Yira, and the Chachma that precedes it, the Bittul that precedes it, it's impossible to achieve it. First, a person has to observe Torah and mitzvahs, al yidei Yira ta'atah hachitzonos. And this is done through first having the lower level of Yira, because in order to properly study Torah and to properly do a mitzvah, you need to have the lower level of Yira beforehand. Yes, it's possible to learn Torah and do mitzvahs without any Yiras Hashem, without the Yira Tata, and do it for egotistical reasons. Sorry? Not Kabbalah Sel. Kabbalah Sel is a form of Yira also. But it can be done because of Ava, for example, or because of egotistical ulterior motives. But that's not going to lead you to the higher level of Yira. You have to follow the formula. Imen Yira in Chachma, Imen Chachma in Yira. To have real Torah mitzvahs, in other words, to have Torah mitzvahs, which is holy Torah mitzvahs, you have to first have Yira, which is the lower level of Yira, a basic level of Bittul for Hashem, which brings you to Torah mitzvahs. And once you have the Torah mitzvahs, again, which was followed by the first level of Yira, then you're ready for the second level of Yira, which is the higher level of Yira. V'zeu shekasuv, and this is what the Mishnah says in Yira and Chachma. Sorry, and that's what the Mishnah says. If there is no Yira, there is no Chachma. And once you have the Chachma, which followed the Yira, then you're ready for the higher level of Yira.
What's Achitzonis? Well, why do you call it Titor Achitzonis?
Because it doesn't come from the Pnimius of Hashem. It comes from the Chitzonis of Hashem. It comes from Hashem's actions, as opposed to Him Himself. Right. That's why Yira. Right. Yira laws are called the Yira Pnimis. It's because from the Pnimius of Hashem. It's not from what Hashem does. It's from who Hashem is.
Yeah, but you can know that only from the Achitzonis. You can't understand the Pnimius without the Chitzonis.
So first you have the Yira Tata, which is the Yira Chitzonis. Now we move on to Torah Mitzvahs and Chachma.
And what does that? And what does that describe? That doesn't describe Elikus, though. Torah Mitzvahs. What is that? How does that connect to Elikus?
So why, Taka, do you have to have Torah mitzvahs in order to reach the higher level of Yira? It's a very good question.
I don't see the connection, though.
And this is a very important point, and it tells us a little about the experiential nature of Torah mitzvahs. At the end of the day, we're saying Yira Tata, the lower level of Yira. I can relate to him. I look around the world. I say Marabu Masacha Hashem. I can see the incredible greatness of Hashem simply by looking around at the world. And as mentioned last week, I don't have to look through a telescope, I can look through a microscope. I can look at any small thing. That's something which is rational. And then moreover, if you're going to tell me, I'm going to learn some Sfarim, I'm going to open up some Agadas of the Gemara in Yaakov, and I'll especially open up some Sfarim of Kabbalah and Chassidus, and I learn about the Malachim, and I learn about the higher worlds, and the tremendous amount of higher worlds. So once again, I can have a great Yira for Hashem, a great reverence for Hashem, Pashat understanding that if this is the world that Hashem created, and this is only the lowest level, the lowest link in the chain of so many higher spiritual worlds that are so many greater that are so much greater than this world, and Hashem created it all. Again, that brings a great yira. But ultimately, all of that is yira chitzainis, yira tata, the lower level of yira. Yira ilah is fearing Hashem as He's completely above and beyond the world, not as He relates to the world, but as He is above and beyond the world. Which leads to the obvious question: but how can I relate to the level of Hashem that is beyond the world? I can relate to looking and seeing.
It's totally abstract.
It's totally abstract. I could look and see Hashem's godless in the world. I can get that. Even the higher worlds, at least I can have some sort of comprehension in that. But to tell me that all the worlds are kula kamei kalach shiv, all the worlds are nothing to Hashem, and Hashem is above and beyond, but I have nothing really to sink my teeth into. What am I relating to? But luckily, we have a gift from Hashem. We have Torah and mitzvahs. And Torah and mitzvahs essentially are from beyond this world. The Medrash tells us that Alpaim Shana Kadma Torah La'ilam, which means that the Torah preceded the world by 2,000 years, whatever that means. Obviously, it doesn't mean literally 2,000 years because there was no time before the creation of the world, but the Torah conceptually is above and beyond the worlds. In fact, all the worlds come from Torah. As the Zohar tells us, Yistakel Beiraisa, Ubara Alma, Hashem looks in the Torah, and the Torah is the blueprint of the world, which means that the Torah obviously is above and beyond the world. To put it in different words, the whole world is here. Why? Because Hashem wants it to be. Because that's the Ratzon of Hashem. Kol asher chafetz Hashem asa. So the world is a product of Hashem's Ratzon. Where is Hashem's Ratzon expressed? In Torah and mitzvahs. So as it turns out, when we learn Torah and when we do mitzvahs, we are actually at this moment relating to Hashem as He is completely above and beyond the world. So I can go and I can take out the microscope, or I can go look in the Hubble telescope and I can see Hashem's greatness. I can go to Niagara Falls and say, wow, take a look at that. But all of that is garnished. That's only Hashem as He interacts with the world. If I want to have a shaykhis with Hashem as He is above and beyond the worlds, that's in Torah and mitzvahs. Then I'm relating to Hashem as He is beyond this world. And in fact, as we learned earlier on in Tanya, in Perek Chav Gimel, and then later on again in the end of Perek Lamed Zayin, if we were to understand what we are doing, what's happening when we're learning Torah, we would not be able to. We wouldn't be able to exist. That's how great learning Torah is. The level of Hashem which is present within Torah, which we are experiencing, is so great that if we were able to appreciate what's really happening, we would have what's called Kleis HaNefesh. We'd evaporate. Our neshamas would leave the guf. But Baruch Hashem, we're so insensitive, we're so unaware. As we gave an example, I think at different times, like imagine like a little dog that goes in the Louvre and passes by the Mona Lisa. That's, has absolutely no appreciation for the fact that it's passing by right now. The most famous painting in the world. But if you're a dog, you don't get it. And our experience of learning Torah is something along those lines. But it doesn't change the fact that that's what it is. The fact that we can't really fully experience it doesn't change the fact that at this moment we're learning Torah and we're doing mitzvahs, we're interacting with Elokus, with godliness, which is completely above and beyond this world. Because Torah and mitzvahs are beyond this world. And as I think we mentioned on several occasions, the mashal that the Rebbe would give quite frequently, and to the point that the Rebbe wouldn't even say the whole mashal, the Rebbe would just say the punchline, and everyone knew what he was talking about. The mashal is that you have some wise people. They're going in a wagon, and their destination is a conference where they're going to be talking about the greatest things about malachim. They're going to be talking about malachim. So you have the wise people. They're sitting in the carriage, and they know where they're headed. They know why they're headed there. And their conversation is all about the malachim. They're talking about in preparation for this conference about malachim. And then, driving the wagon is you have the wagon driver. The wagon driver has no clue about malachim, what malachim are. And you ask the wagon driver, what's the purpose of this trip? The wagon driver says, the purpose of this trip is because when we get to our destination, I'm going to get a few ruble, and I'm going to buy some vodka, and I'm going to get drunk. So the purpose of the trip is that I should get drunk. And then you have the horses that are leading the carriage, and what's going on in their minds. They definitely have no concept of malachim, and they're thinking that the reason why that they're going on this trip is because there's, in Yiddish it's called haber. Haber means animal feed, hay, right? At the destination. So they're all going to the destination, so they should be able to have their haber, their hay.
Good meal.
And the punchline is, as wie bald as die Pferd trachten haber, zijn de malachim kin malachim nicht. Just because the horses are thinking about hay, that's their limitation. The only thing they can think about is hay. Does that change the fact that whether or not they're malachim? It's the fact. So they don't get it, they don't understand it, they can't appreciate it. It doesn't change the fact. A lot of times by Farbringen, the Rebbe would say, so we don't get it, we don't appreciate it. We don't appreciate it. Aber as die Pferd trachten haber zijn de malachim kin malachim nicht. The Rebbe wouldn't even say the whole mashal, he'd just say the punchline. Everyone already knew where he was going with this. So the fact is that when we learn Torah mitzvahs, what we are doing is, even if we don't, on a conscious level, we're not being aware of this, we are making ourselves capable of being able to relate to Hashem as He is above and beyond the worlds, and thereby to have Yireh Ilah, this higher level of Yireh. Again, the higher level of Yireh is dependent on being able to have a fear, a reverence for Hashem Himself, as He is above and beyond the worlds. Without Torah mitzvahs, we can't have that, because without Torah mitzvahs, we're trapped in this world, and we have no relation to anything beyond the world. But the gift of Torah mitzvahs is that we should be able to actually sense and appreciate in some way, and have a relationship with Hashem as He is above the world, and for that you need Torah mitzvahs. So that's why in Yireh and Chachma, to do Torah mitzvahs properly, you need to have first Yireh, the lower level of Yireh. But once you have the higher level of Yireh, once you have Torah mitzvahs, then you're ready now for the higher level of Yireh, for the Yireh Ilah, and to be able to have a Yireh for Hashem as He is above and beyond the worlds. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this tells us a little about the experiential nature of Yiddishkeit. That just do it. Go learn some Torah and go do some mitzvahs, and it has an impact. Torah and mitzvahs have an impact. I don't remember the exact details of the story, but when the Frierdiker Rebbe was once when he was being interrogated, this is by the Soviets in the 1920s. So one of the interrogators asked the Frierdiker Rebbe if the idea, these were a bunch of atheists. That was a big platform of communism. So the interrogator asked the Rebbe whether the fact that he believes in Hashem and accepts Hashem is not something which is just a tradition, not something that he got from his parents and something that he accepts, or is it real conviction, something that's absolutely he's convinced of 100%? And the Frierdiker Rebbe said it's absolute conviction. So the interrogator said, "Really, that's great. Then convince me also." Then convince me. In other words, if this is something which you're absolutely sure of and convinced of, then obviously that's something that you can prove. So prove it to me also. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, "Sure, I have no problem. I can do that." He says, but just by way of example, imagine you went over to a big astronomer and said, "Explain me all the ways of the sun, the moon, and the constellations." The astronomer said, "Here, I can't do that. Come with me to my observatory, and there, let's take a look in the telescopes, and I'll show you everything, and you'll be able to experience it firsthand, and you'll be able to see it. I can't stand here on the street and explain this to you." So the Frierdiker Rebbe said the same thing over here. "I can definitely do this. Come home with me, and let's sit for a few months, and we'll learn some Torah together, and we'll do some mitzvahs together, and you'll see, you'll also be convinced." That's what he told him.
He didn't buy that.
He didn't buy that, no. But this is because, and the importance of experiencing a mitzvah, is because, again, when you're doing a mitzvah, even if you're a ferd and you're thinking haber, even if you're a horse and you're thinking about the hay, the malachim are there. The malachim are actually there, and you're experiencing those things. Maybe not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level, your neshama is experiencing it, and that has a tremendous impact on a person. And that's one of the reasons. There are many reasons, but that's one of the reasons why it's so important to do mitzvahs with people. You bump into someone who doesn't keep mitzvahs. So one way of working it is saying, okay, let me have a lengthy conversation with this person, and let me try to convince him about Torah, and explain to him how logical it is, the whole idea of Matan Torah, and just let me have a philosophical conversation with him. That's one approach. And the other approach is just tell the person to do a mitzvah, get the person to do a mitzvah, whatever mitzvah may be, get the person to learn a little Torah and do some mitzvahs, and that has a much bigger impact than all your conversations. Because at the end of the day, if you want the person to be able to experience and feel a little the Elokus Hashem, which is above and beyond the world, you want the person to be moved a little higher, that's dafka through the experience of Torah and mitzvahs. And with this we have now ended the topic, the conversation about Yiras Hashem. We've discussed several levels of Yiras Hashem which precede Torah and mitzvahs, and different ways of arriving at Yiras Hashem, and different meditations that lead to different isbeinos that lead to Yiras Hashem. And now, at the very end, we've also found out that there is a level of Yiras Hashem which is not about getting you to properly learn Torah and do mitzvahs, but it's actually a product of, and it follows Torah and mitzvahs. And this is also something important for us to know, that as we're growing in our relationship with Hashem, it's not only enough to have Yirat Atah, but we also have to try to achieve a little this Yirei Ilah, and try to think about Hashem as He is, above and beyond the worlds, and try to have that Yirei Ilah. And now we're going to move on to Ava. We're right now on Perek Mem Gimel, and now we're going to start a topic which we will end when we arrive at Perek Nun Aleph. So we're talking about quite a few prakim. It's going to be divided into smaller parts. In other words, we're going to learn about different levels of Ava, different types of Ava, different ways of arriving at Avas Hashem. But right now we are going to start the topic of Avas Hashem. Inside. V'hinei, 5 lines from the top of Pei Samach Beis. V'hinei, Ba'ava yizgam ken shtei madregas. Just like we explained that in Yira there are 2 levels. There is Yira Tata and Yira Ilah. So in Avas Hashem there are also 2 levels. And one of them is what we'll call Ava B'tanugim, which the Alter Rebbe is going to describe first. And this Ava is also known as Ahava Rabbah, the great love. And then later on in this period we're going to learn about the lower level of Ava, which is called Ahavas Olam. So you have Ava Rabbah and Ahavas Olam. The word should be familiar to you, right? So now in Davening we talk about Ava Rabbah and Ahavas Olam. We're talking about Hashem's love for us, but also these 2 exist in our love for Hashem.
The other way around.
Right, other way around. Actually, in Chabad we don't say Ava Rabbah. According to Nusach Harib, we say Ahavas Olam both by morning and by night. And the reason for that, you'll have to wait for Perek Memtes. Perek Memtes. We'll learn about why we say Ahavas Olam, not why according to Nusach Harib we say Ahavas Olam, not Ava Rabbah. Okay.
Starting with the higher level.
Sorry, Ava Rabbah is a higher level, right?
That's what you're saying. So it's
Yeah, but we say Ahavas Olam Dafka.
No, I mean, in Sefer Tanya, he mentions first the higher level before the lower.
Right.
With Yira, we started with Yira Tatzah.
Right.
Here he's right away says.
Right. I don't know why. I was thinking about that, and I don't know why it is that by Yira you start with the lower level and get to the higher level.
Yeah. Here's the
And then by Ava it's the opposite. Yes. I don't know why. So Ava Rabbah, Ava B'tanugim. Ava Rabbah is a love which is characterized by love, by pleasure. This is something that we discussed a little while ago when we were learning Perek Tes. I'm sure some of you remember that there are 2 different types of love. Over there we talk. There's the idea of. We're going to talk about it over here. Also in Perek Nun, the Alter Rebbe is going to come back to this topic. There is a love which is like fire, and there's a love which is like water. You have Ava Kirish Beyesh, and then what you have what's called Ava Kamayim. And Ava Kamayim is synonymous with Ava B'tanugim. One type of love is a love which is characterized by yearning, by desire, by passion. And then there's another, and that's the Ava Kirish B'yesh, that's the fiery love. And then there is the Ava B'tanugim, which is a higher level of love, which is characterized, it's quiet, it's still, it's like water, it's cool, it's calm, and it's characterized by pleasure. Water in general is associated with pleasure.
שיר השירים, it said, מים רבים לא יוכלו לכבות את האהבה.
I know, but that's a different mayim.
שתחפץ.
That's a different, that's water not being able to extinguish the love. That's something else. That mayim is talking about something else.
So what's in the shuv? Like the yearning and the.
There's yearning, and then you're not yearning anymore because you have the relationship. You're enjoying the relationship. You've achieved it. Sometimes this is compared to the difference between love between a husband and wife, marital love, and the love between siblings. There are different types of love. It's a different type of love between a husband and wife, and the love between siblings. The love between a husband and wife is compared to ahava kirish b'yesh. It's a fiery love. It's a passionate love. And the love between siblings is a colder love. It's kamayim. It's like water. It's called the ava b'tanugim. Now, which one is the greater love? The love between a husband and wife, or the love between siblings?
Husband and wife would be
Husband and wife
more fire.
would be more fire. That's correct. I didn't ask which one's more fire. I asked which one. I asked which one is the greater love.
I thought that was dependent on the greater love. It's more.
The fire between the husband and wife comes from the distance.
I don't get that.
You don't get that? And you want to know what the proof is? That 50 years after they're married, on their 50th anniversary, the fire is pretty much gone, and the relationship is as strong as ever. It's stronger than it was
beginning,
in the beginning when it was fiery, right? So how can you say that the fire is where it all is? As we know, throughout marriage, the fire hopefully never goes away, and it doesn't disappear. But there's no question that the fire gets less and less. But that doesn't mean that the love gets weaker. To the contrary, the love gets stronger. Because the fire comes from the distance. The fire comes from the fact that I'm a male and you're a female, and we come from different backgrounds and different families and different places, and and I want you and you want me. And that's fire. That's a yearning. That's a desire. It's the yearning to attach and to connect to something which is outside of you. As opposed to the love that's between siblings, there isn't that distance. They're really essentially one siblings. They come from one family. They come from, they grew up with one mother, one father. And they don't have to work to create the relationship. It is. They enjoy the relationship.
They're born into it.
By the way, there are advantages to the Ava Krish B'yesh. We're not going to talk that we'll get to in Perik Nun. But these are the two models of love. There is the fire and the excitement and the passion comes from distance. Whereas when you're close to something, and especially when you're one with something, and when you're united with something, and when you have something, the excitement and the passion wears away. But that doesn't mean that you're less connected. That means that the excitement and passion comes from the distance. A mashal that's brought, maybe we mentioned this in the past when we taught the Perek Tes, is that if you have imagine you have a wealthy person, and one day the wealthy person invites over to his house a poor person for a meal. And the poor person, hasn't eaten anything but bread and water in a year, and hasn't eaten anything period in 24 hours. So they sit down to a magnificent meal, a 3-course meal. So you could just imagine the picture of this: that you bring the food, and the waiters put down the plates in front of the people. So what is the balabayis, the wealthy person? What does he do? He's not rushing. He finishes his conversation with whoever he's talking to, and then he takes his napkin and neatly covers himself. Then he takes his fork and his knife, and he neatly cuts the food into little pieces. And then he eats half of it. He leaves over half of it. The poor person,
He's starved to death.
the moment that the food lands in front of him, there is no napkin, there is no fork, there is no knife, there's no one else to talk to. The whole thing is, within 10 seconds.
ולא נודע כי בא אל קרבנו.
Right, and with a lot of noise and passion and excitement, right, and with a lot of gusto. Whereas the rich person is quiet and calm and cool. The same thing in the second course, the same thing in the third course. Now, if someone were to look and they would say, wow, so who's really more connected to this food? And you'd say, wow, the poor person is really, really connected to the food. The rich person seems to be so, what's the word I'm looking for? And not impartial, but so aloof, But the truth is, that tomorrow, if both the rich person and the poor person are given a breakfast of bread and water, who's gonna blow the gasket? Who's gonna go crazy? The rich person or the poor person? No.
The rich person.
The rich person.
What's it again?
Who's gonna go nuts if tomorrow there isn't all that food? There's only bread and water.
Oh, the rich guy would go. He can't take it.
Well, one second. The rich guy wasn't even so excited about the food yesterday. The poor person was so excited. Why is it that the next day the poor person has no problem with the bread and water, the rich person is going crazy? But the answer is that the reason why the rich person is so calm and cool is because of his intense attachment. Because this is who he is. It's not something distant from him. This way of life is not something which he's trying to achieve or accomplish. He's not like, wow, it's who I am. So it's calm, cool, and collected. The same thing is in terms of our relationship with Hashem, with Ava Krish B'Yeshem. By the way, this is not trying to minimize it. A love, which is a fiery love, is an incredible love, but it's a love of yearning. I feel so distant from Hashem, and I'm yearning and I'm trying to reach out to Hashem. And that's called the Ava Krish B'Yesh. And then there's the Ava Kamayim. Ava Kamayim is when you've actually succeeded in having this incredible, intense relationship with Hashem, and you're taking pleasure in it. And then it's a much quieter, and you're calm and you're relaxed and you're enjoying it. It's characterized by tainug. So obviously we understand that this ava b'tanugim, this ava rabba, is a higher level of love than the ava krish b'yesh. Okay, so when it comes to this ava rabba, the first thing we have to know is that it's a ava b'tanugim. It's a love which is characterized by pleasure. That's number one. Number two, what's the second characteristic of this ava rabba? V'hi shal heves ha'ila me'elaha. It's like a flame that goes up on its own. Uba milmayla bebechinas matana, and it comes from above as a present. It's a flame that goes up on its own, which means it's not the product of a person's work. Ava rabba is not the product of your work. It's not as if that a person will sit and contemplate the greatness of Hashem for a long time and then will be able to arrive at Ava Rabba. No. It shall have a flame that goes up on its own, and it comes from above. It's a gift from above. So that's point number two. So again, characteristic number one of Ava Rabba is that it's characterized bitanugim. It's a pleasurable type of love as opposed to the Kirish B'Eish style of Ava. Number two is that it's a present from above. And who is it a present to? L'mishu hu shalom b'yira. It's a gift for the person who already has a complete level of yiras Hashem.
Ilah or Torah? Which one?
I don't think it has to be yira ilah.
No?
I don't think, no. It has to be shalom b'yira, completely a yirei Hashem b'tachlis. In fact, in general, Yira Ilah is a higher level than Ava Rabba. So I believe that, in general, the Seder, it says it's Yira, Ahava, Yira. Yira Tata, Ava
Rabba.
The lowest, no, Ava Soilam, Ava Rabba, Yira Ilah. Yira Ilah is the highest level. But it comes to someone who is Shalom B'Yira, Keneid al Maimer Azal. It brings down an interesting Maimer Azal. Dark Ishalish. Excuse me. The Gemara says in Masechtas Pesachim, the dark Ishalish lechazer achar isha. It is the way of the man to seek out the woman. So, in a simple sense, this is a story about shidduchim. That it is the man who looks for the woman, as the Gemara says, because that if a person loses something, let's say a person loses a wallet, for example. So does the person look for the wallet, or does the wallet look for the person? Person looks for the wallet. So therefore, the man lost something. We lost the rib. We lost the side. So therefore, the man has to go look for the Aveda. But al pi Kabbalah, he says like this. He's going to explain that the ish, the male, is Ava. The female is Yira. So darki shel ish lachazer achar isha. It is the way of the male to follow the female, or to go after the female, or to pursue the female. That means it is the way of Ava to follow Yira. That when does this Avas Hashem come? When there's Yira, when the Isha is there, which is the Yira, then the Ava also makes its an appearance. Sha'ava nikras ish v'zachar. Love in general is associated with masculinity. It's called the man, called the male. Kamesha Kosev, as the pasuk says, it's an interesting raya, zachar chastoi. That chesed is, the word zachar can be read also, zachar is associated with zachar. And regarding a woman, what does it say? Isha yiras Hashem? Kenoida, as is known. Bli kidima sayiram. Without the yira, without the isha, efshar lagia la'ava rabazum, you can't arrive at this avha rabba, this great love. So, condition number 3 for this avha rabba. So the first thing that we said is that it's ava betanugim. The 3 descriptors of this ava betanugim. Number 1, it's ava betanugim. 3 descriptors of the ava rabba. His number 1 is that it's ava which is betanugim. Number 2, it's not the product of human endeavor, human effort. And number 3, it's a matana. And number 3, to who is this matana given? Only to someone who's shalom b'yira, only someone who has full yiras Hashem. Those are the 3 things we need to know about yiras, about this level of avarabba. Yes?
It seems like they called it a shalhevet. No? Explain.
Right. Are you saying how's it ava, which is interesting point. I guess to a certain extent every ava is a shalhevet, but this one is more like mine.
Expression shalhevet.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, it's an expression, but everything also has to be meduyik. Just if we can go off a little on the side, we mentioned over here that ava and chesed is a masculine trait. Zachar chaste. And yira, which comes from gevura. In other words, you have 2, there's ava, there's chesed and gevura, which are related to ava and yira. So ava and chesed are considered masculine traits, and yira and gevura are associated with femininity. And actually, we have in this week's parsha, you have the whole story of Avram and Sarah, and it's normal pick up all that Avram is chesed and Sarah is gevura. So does this resonate? The idea that men are chesed and women are gevura, does this resonate with? We have a bunch of men here, so no one's complaining.
Which Teva is the opposite.
What?
Teva.
Al Piteva, you're saying men are more chesed than women are?
No, women more chesed.
So it doesn't resonate. It doesn't resonate. So why did no one ask a question? A lot of Kabbalah soil in this room over here. If not the Rebbe says it, so it is.
I'll tell you said it. They're
Yeah.
not argue.
Asking a question is not arguing. There's 2 different things. So the emes is that to understand really why chesed is masculine and yira is feminine, we need to have a better understanding of chesed and gevura. I believe we've spoken about this before. That's the nature of things, that when you're teaching for 3.5 years, usually saying things, but I don't remember the content. I don't remember speaking about it, but I'm shy. We probably spoke about this before. Many people are under the misconception that means chesed is giving and gevura is withholding. Chesed is being kind and gevura is being mean. But that's not the way at all. We know that gevura is synonymous with midas hadin. Always talk about midas hadin. Hashem's midas gevura. Is midas hadin bad? Does midas hadin withhold? Midas hadin gives But what does Midas Hadin give?
To those,
Sorry?
to those who deserve it.
It gives to those who are deserving of it. Whereas Midas HaChesed gives even to those who aren't deserving of it. So when I work, and then at the end of the week my employer comes and gives me a paycheck, so I say thank you. But is that chesed of the employer? He's not doing chesed. That's din. And in fact, if he doesn't give me the paycheck, I'm taking him to a din Torah. And I'm going to say, where's the money that you owe me? So din also gives. But din doesn't give indiscriminately. Chesed gives indiscriminately. Why does chesed give indiscriminately? Avram, he's the paragon of chesed. Why does chesed give indiscriminately? Chesed gives indiscriminately because it has to give. Because a Baal Chesed is someone, it's not even about the recipient, it's about my need to give. What's the biggest proof? We have Avram Avinu again, who's the example of Chesed. That Avram Avinu, at the end of this week's parasha, so he has a bris. And then he's elderly man, he's 99 years old, and he's recovering, and Hashem says, I'll do him a favor. I'm going to make it very hot. This is, again, moving into the beginning of next week's parasha, I'm going to make it very hot. Right? And therefore, there won't be any passersby. I know Avram Avinu, if he sees people who need food, he's going to go feed them. So I'm going to make sure that no one comes. No one comes, everything is good. But Hashem's plan, Kaviyachol, backfires. Why does it backfire? Because Avram is sitting at his tent and he's being mitztayer, he's in pain over the fact that he has no one to give to. But think about that for a second. Why should he be in pain? There's no one to give to. That's great. What's bothering him? In other words, if chesed means that I look at someone, I see he needs, and therefore I am impelled to help, so Hashem took that away. He took away the problem. It's very hot. There's no one traveling today. There's no one to give to. Go to sleep. But Avram is not going to sleep. He's pained that he can't give. And this tells us something about Midas HaChesed. It tells us that chesed is about the need and the desire to be a giver. Gevura doesn't have the need to be a giver. If chesed is about the giver, about the mashpia, Gevura is about the mekabel. Gevura looks at you and says, what do you need? What do you deserve? It's about you, it's not about me. In chesed, it's about the giver, the need of the giver to give. And by Gevura, it's not about, I have no need to give. I'm perfectly content not to give. But let's look at you. What do you deserve? It's about you, it's not about me. And I'll give you what you deserve. And then there's another level, which is a combination of two, which is rachmim, which means I'll give you even if you don't deserve it, but I'll give it to you if you need it. But al kapanim, what we have over here, the paradigm chesed and gevura. Chesed is about the mashpia, and gevura is about the mekabel. And when you look at it in that way, suddenly the male-female begins to make sense. Both the mother and the father, both man and woman, they give. But when men give, it's about them. It's about them. It has a lot to do with them giving. It has a lot to do with. And I'm going to buy a gift. Now, what gift can I give that's everyone's going to see that I gave a gift? Is it about the person I'm giving the gift to?
That's by himself.
Or is it about I want to take a look? They're going to see I give, and that's a masculine type of chesed. And gevura is I don't need to be recognized as a giver. It's not about me. What are the needs over here? And it's devotion to the needs of the mekabel. It's about the other. And this is about milmata l'mayla, milmayla l'mata. You know, that's why the man is compared to the sun and the woman is compared to the moon. The same idea. The sun gives in a very overpowering way. Its presence, it's felt. The woman, the light of the moon is much more subtle. It also gives light, but it's a more subtle light. It's not an overpowering light. So chesed is the overpowering of the mashpia in a good way, whereas gevura, now, there's advantages to chesed, there's advantages to gevura, and that's why Hashem created that men and women get married, and then you have both advantages come together, and then you have a healthy family, Baruch Hashem. And not only that, men aren't only masculine, and women aren't only feminine. There's also the men also have gevura, women also have chesed. But these are more the dominant traits of the male and the female. And once you frame chesed and gevura in the proper way, it actually makes more sense this idea of that the men are the chesed, which means, yes, they're overpowering sometime with their chesed, but it's very much about their chesed, whereas women are more reserved, but it's more about the recipient. And the same thing is when it comes to Ava and Yira. When we say Ava, which is associated with chesed, is a male trait, and Gvura, which is associated with Yira, is a female trait. Ava and Yira are similar to Chesed and Gvura in the fact that Ava is about me and Yira is about you. Think about that for a second. Ava is about my love. Ava is about my love, my feelings, and I need to express my love and my feelings. And by Yira, it's not about me, it's about that person. It's about the other person. It's, as we've discussed before, when Yira is synonymous with reverence and kavod. Kavod is more a function of Yira than it is of Ahava. When you have kavod for someone, when you truly respect and revere that person, it's not about me, it's not about I want to have respect, it's that person is due that respect. I'm acknowledging what that person is due. Whereas Ava is about my feelings. So therefore, you see Ava is on the side of Chesed, because it's on the side of the feelings of the Mashpia, whereas Gevura and Yira are on the other side, they're primarily about the other. The focus is on the other, and this is more of a masculine trait, and this is more of a feminine trait. Now that's just the Adkan, the Maimer HaMusker. It's not really integral to the Tanya that we're learning over here, but since the Alter Rebbe does mention that Ava is masculine and Yira is feminine, and the Alter Rebbe says, Darki Shalish, L'chazer achar isha, which means that it is the way of the man to follow the woman, which means that when there's the woman, when there's the isha yiras Hashem, when there's the yiras Hashem, when a person is shalom b'yira, that's when this higher level of Ava, this Ava Rabbah, is given as a matana from above. Now that resonates more? Good, okay. I was thinking about that recently because I just celebrated my anniversary like a few weeks ago, and I got a gift for my wife because that's what you have to do. And I was thinking about that men get gifts for their wives at anniversaries, and not the other way around. Why not? But I think that if you follow what we're saying, it makes sense, because the anniversary gift is a statement. It's a statement of my love, and that's more of a masculine thing. The woman does things for her husband all the time and don't even recognize it almost. It's not like the earrings. It's not like the earrings the lady's gonna walk out with and everyone's like, wow, who got that? My husband. Oh, he's a great guy, your husband. He got you such earrings, right? And in terms, it doesn't work the other way around. Because it's not, when the woman gives, it's not about her. She gives the husband whatever he needs, without her chesed needing to be recognized, because it's not about her. So actually that makes sense in terms of these ideas that we were just talking about. And it's really not the way. The woman doesn't need that you should walk around with something and like, oh, that I got from my wife. It's just not, it's very different. Okay. Ubeli kidima sayira. Ubeli is the last word on the line in Pei Samach Beis. Without having first yira, one cannot reach this high level of this level of Abba Rabba. Why? Ki avazuhim bebechinas atzilus. This Ava is on the level of Atzilus. That's the highest of the spiritual worlds. The last Taman, and over there in Atzilus, Alter Rebbe is quoting the words of Kabbalah that in Atzilus there isn't kitzutz or pirud chas v'shalom. There's nothing which is cut away or disconnected chas v'shalom from Hashem. Atzilus is the world or the level, the state of absolute and complete connection and devotion to Hashem. It's higher, after the world of Atzilus, you have the world of Bria. Bria means creation. That's where ego begins. That's where identity begins. That's where something other than Hashem. Creation implies yesh mi'ayin, something other than Hashem exists. In the world of Atzilus, it's all connection with Hashem. There's nothing separate from Hashem. In fact, the world of Atzilus sometimes is called the Olam of Achdus. The world of Achdus because Everything there is one with Hashem. There is no mitzias, yeshus, other than Hashem. This Ava that we're describing, Ava Rabba, is on the level of Atzilus. When a person's on that level of connection with Hashem, Tanugim, the Ava B'Tanugim means you're experiencing it. You have that. That's when a person is on the level of Atzilus. But in Atzilus does not tolerate anything which is other than Hashem. Anything which is Kitzut Sapirut, anything which is its own Mitzias. And that's why, in order to have this Ava, you have to be Shalim B'Yira first. You first have to have Shlimus Ayira. Because as we mentioned countless times, where is the Bittul to Hashem in Yira? Yira expresses one's Bittul. Someone who's Shalim B'Yira, who's complete in Yira, means he's completely Battul to Hashem. If you're completely Battul to Hashem, then you're ready for the Gilui, for this attachment, this level of Gilui to Hashem. This level of Ava Rabba. And just to understand that, when we say that this is a matana from Hashem, it doesn't mean that a person's walking around one day and suddenly, boom, he gets a gift in some sort of spiritual gift wrap delivered by
Angels.
UAS, United Ava Delivery or something. Right? The truth is that at the core of every one of ours neshama, we have Atzilus. We are on the level of Atzilus. That's not our experience on a day-to-day life. But the essence of our neshama, the essence of what we call the Pintla Yid, is complete connection with Hashem. Complete connection. On the level of Atzilus. And that part of the neshama has this tremendous Ava B'Tanugim, this Ava Rabba for Hashem. But we don't experience that part of us. We don't experience that part of the neshama. And that's a gift. And by the way, that Pintla Yid is not something it's not a product of our effort. It's not as if you work harder, you'll get a Pintla Yid, and if you work even harder, you'll get a better Pintla Yid. It's a gift. It's a matana b'mayla. It's a gift. It's always there. We have to access it. The only way we access it is when you're Shalom B'Yira. So when you're Shalom B'Yira, you get a gift. It's a gift you always had. It's the gift that we have starting from this week's parsha. Lech Lecha Ma'atzcha, that Avraham Avinu. This is a gift that we got as a Yerusha from Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. It's a gift that we have, and every morning we say Hashem Matev Chalkeinu. We thank Hashem, right? That we have this gift. We have this connection to Hashem intrinsically, innately. But in order to have the revelation of this gift, you have to be a Shalom B'Yira. Once you're Shalom B'Yira, you're totally Batul to Hashem, then you're ready to experience this gift, this tremendous Ava, this tremendous Ava B'Tanugim, this pleasurable love, and which a person can have.
The first gift that Hashem gave us, Matana Yesh Bevet Gnazai Ushma Shabbat.
That's true.
The first gift that Hashem gave us.
So that's the higher level of Ava. It's the higher level of Ava called Ava Rabba. And once again, just to repeat the three conditions. Why? Because then we're going to move to the next level of Ava, the lower level. We'll see that these three conditions don't exist in the lower level. Number one, again, is that it's bita'anugim. It's not so much a fiery love of yearning, but it's a love which is a pleasurable love. Number two, it's a matana, meaning what? It's not something that you earn. It's a gift from Hashem, although we have to reveal that gift. But it's not pshat that it's a product of my avodah. That this ava, why do I love Hashem so much? Because I worked so hard to develop this ava. You didn't do any work to develop this ava. You were born with this ava. That's number two. So number two is a gift. And number three, who receives this gift? There's only someone who's Shalom B'Yira. Only someone, yeah. Okay, you know what? We'll stop here and we'll talk a little something from the parsha. The next ava is going to be called Avas Olam, and that is an Ava which doesn't have the three conditions. Number one, it's an Ava which is characterized by yearning. Number two, it's not a gift from above. It's actually a product of our Avodah, of our Zbainus. When we think into the greatness of Hashem, we arrive at this Ava. And number three, it can come even without Yira. We'll talk about that next week. What's interesting is that in this week's parsha, at the end of the parsha, we have the idea of bris. And the Alter Rebbe points out in the Maimer, and this week in Torah Oyer, the Alter Rebbe points out that when it comes to bris, the pasuk says the be'etzem hayem hazeh nimel Avraham. So when it comes to Avram, the milah of Avram's of Yishmael and all of Avram's members of his household says vayamal Avram. Avram circumcised them. And when it gets to Yishmael, when it gets to Avram, it says nimel Avram, not vayamal Avram as atzmei. Avram circumcised himself, but nimel Avram. Avram was circumcised. And the Alter Rebbe explains, and this is if you ever been by a bris in Chabad, this is actually the Maimer which is standardly said by the Avi Haben, by the Suda, it's a short Maimer. And the Alter Rebbe explains that there are two levels in bris. There's a normal level of bris, and then there's a higher level of bris. And that's why in the Psukim it says, when you're talking about, there's the Milah Begashmias, physical Milah, but we know everything physical has a spiritual behind it. So there's also the spiritual milah, and the spiritual milah is not something we have to look very hard for. We have in the Varim where it says that Hashem tells us, "Umaltem es arlas levavchem." You have to what? Umaltem es arlas levavchem. Maybe, which means they have to circumcise your hearts. Now that does not require open heart surgery in any way, shape, or form. It's something spiritual. That the idea of a arla, so a arla which is a foreskin, but also means anything which is a covering, anything which is a blockage. So in the physical bris, so it's a foreskin which is the physical blockage. But in the heart, Hashem says, remove the blockages from your heart and allow your heart to love Hashem. All those things that are preventing you from loving Hashem, which those our preoccupation with worldly pleasures, those are the arla. And Hashem is saying, please, take off that arla, and then your heart becomes revealed, and your Abba for Hashem becomes revealed. But then, in Parshas Netzavim, there's something interesting. It says that in the Yehudim of the Gula, it says the Yidden will do tshuva. And the Shav Hashem Elokecha Shvuscha will all go back to Eretz Yisrael. Ve'heviyacha, Hashem will bring you back to land. Ve'etivcha, ve'hirbacha ma'avisecha, Hashem will be good, everything. And then what's the next pasuk? Umal Hashem Elokecha slevavcha v'slevav zaracha. Didn't we do that? Who's doing it? Are we doing it? Because in one pasuk it says Umal tamasar slevavchem, that we have to do the bris milah. And another pasuk it says Umal Hashem. And not only that, it would seem that the simple level of milah is a prerequisite to geula. In other words, if we don't have avas Hashem, why is Hashem redeeming us? So Alter Rebbe says there are two levels in milah. And by the way, these two levels in milah are also represented in the physical milah by milah and priya. The milah is the lower level of milah, then priya is the higher level of milah. But the two levels in spiritual milah, one of them is that I have to try to remove the blockages and try to create a love for Hashem as much as possible. Once I have that, once I've accomplished that, then I have the geula. And when all of Klal Yisrael does it, then all of Klal Yisrael has the geula. And after the geula, then we have a higher level of milah. When we get a higher level of ava, which is the ava rabba, which we just spoke about in Tanya today. And that ava rabba is a matana. It's not something we can do. It's not umaltem esarlos levavchem. It's not something that we can do, but it's a much higher level of ava, which is a matana from Avram. And that's why by Avram Avinu it says Nimel Avraham. Not Vayamal Avram, but Nimel, because Avram experienced the higher level of Milah, the higher level of Avam, which is, and that's the real Krisas Bris. The real idea of Bris is the higher level of Milah. The connection to Hashem, which is always dear in the heart, which has to be revealed. And with this, Alter Rebbe answers the question, why is it that it's a question that's a famous question, why is it that all the mitzvahs Avram did before Matan Torah, and Milah Avram Avinu didn't do. If Avram was makayim all the mitzvahs before Matan Torah, he should have also had a bris milah. Why did he wait for this one for Hashem to tell him to do something? So there are many answers to this question, but the Alter Rebbe says on a very simple level, not on a simple level, on a al derech hasoid, Avram didn't just want to experience the lower level of milah. He wanted to experience the higher level of milah. The higher level of milah is a matana from Hashem. So he couldn't do it by himself. He needed to have, and that's when through all of Avram's avodah, in his 99 years, he completely accomplished the first level of milah, That's when Hashem says, now you're ready for the higher level of Milah. This is the one. This is the gift that I'm going to give you, and Nimay Avraham, and that's this higher level of Avarabba we're talking about in this parak. Shabbos, everyone.